Will India become the next China? As China's economy faces challenges and global enthusiasm for India's growth intensifies, this question emerges from mere speculation to a topic of serious consideration. The world is already recognizing India as a major power. Let's delve into the transformations and challenges that might make India the next China, and maybe even bigger. India's economy is poised for growth, though replicating China's 40-year miracle is unlikely. However, India is no longer constrained by the economic limitations that once held it back. For the past 25 years, India's development has struggled due to inadequate infrastructure, insufficient for both domestic manufacturing and foreign firms considering it as an export base. In the last decade, however, India's infrastructure has significantly transformed. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, the country has seen extensive development in roads, ports, airports, railways, power, and telecommunications, making it almost unrecognizable compared to a few years ago. For instance, since 2014, around 34,000 miles of national highways have been constructed. India's digital infrastructure has seen a remarkable transformation as well. Once outdated and efficient, it is now state-of-the-art, with everyday transactions being conducted via smartphones. This advanced digital network reaches all corners of India, enabling the government to implement direct cash transfer programs for those in need. A prime example is the Unified Payments Interface, UPI, which has revolutionized financial transactions, processing over $1 trillion in 2022 alone.
India's homegrown digital payments platform, we're talking about UPI, the Unified Payments Interface. It continues its growth momentum. The platform registered record number of transactions and volume in the previous financial year, which ended on the 31st of March.
This advanced digital network reaches all corners of India, enabling the government to implement direct cash transfers for those in need. Simultaneously, the private sector leverages this platform for entrepreneurship and innovation. India's population has already surpassed China's, with India having 1.44 billion people compared to China's 1.42, making it the most populous country in the world. This demographic shift brings both opportunities and challenges. With around 500 million people under the age of 20, India has a vast potential workforce that could drive economic growth for decades. However, this also means that India must focus on creating sufficient employment opportunities and improving access to quality education to harness this demographic advantage effectively. The youthful population, if well utilized, could become a significant asset in boosting productivity and innovation, positioning India as a global economic powerhouse. Additionally, the Modi's government new welfareism has significantly improved the quality of life for many Indians. This unique strategy focuses on the public provision of essential private goods and services, offering citizens clean fuel, sanitation, power, housing, water, and bank accounts. These initiatives highlight the Prime Minister as the benefactor. Consequently, the government can support the vulnerable with employment opportunities and free food during crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. The Indian state's ability to build and deliver on such a large scale has been impressive. These significant achievements are the result of extensive national efforts. While many of these initiatives began under previous central and state governments, the Modi administration has significantly accelerated their progress. Evidence of their effectiveness is becoming apparent. India's 2024 general elections are poised to be the largest and longest in the country's history, spanning 7 phases from April 19th to June 1st. This monumental democratic exercise will elect 543 members to the Lok Sabha, India's lower house of parliament. The results are scheduled to be announced on June 4th, making this an intensely watched political event. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, seeks a third consecutive term. Modi's leadership has been marked by significant economic reforms and ambitious projects like the Make in India initiative. The BJP's main challenger is the Indian National Congress, INC, which has formed a broad coalition named the Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance, INDA, to increase its electoral strength. Despite this alliance, internal conflicts and defections have challenged its unity and effectiveness. Voter turnout is expected to be high, with approximately 970 million eligible voters. Key issues influencing the electorate include economic growth, unemployment, farmer distress, and welfare programs. The Modi government has emphasized its commitment to development and welfare, focusing on infrastructure, digitalization, and social schemes to improve living standards. India has experienced a significant boost in its skill-based service exports. The services sector initially surged in the early 2000s, but stagnated following the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. Recently, however, it has experienced a resurgence. In 2022, India's global market share in services increased by 1.1 percentage points, equivalent to around $40 billion, indicating a substantial leap in skill levels. Though 2023 likely saw further gains in global market share, the growth rate was somewhat slower. Indians who once focused on basic coding and call center operations now lead global capability centers, handling complex analytical tasks for top-tier international firms. JP Morgan Chase employs around 50,000 people in India, and Goldman Sachs' largest office outside of New York is situated in Bangalore. Companies like Accenture and Amazon have also established significant operations. This surge has spurred the construction of high-rise apartments, with cranes dominating the skylines of tech hubs such as Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Pune. The demand for SUVs is skyrocketing, and luxury malls and high-end restaurants are flourishing, all fueled by a boom in personal credit. Next, signs of revival are emerging in Uttar Pradesh, India's most populous and historically underdeveloped state. The state is overhauling its aging infrastructure, restoring its numerous temples, managing its finances better, and curbing corruption and violence under the leadership of a dynamic sectarian leader, a Hindu monk turned politician. If Uttar Pradesh can become an appealing destination for investment, its massive population could shift the trajectory of the entire nation. This transformation would demonstrate that India's Hindi heartland, previously labeled as Bimaru or diseased, is not destined for perpetual underdevelopment. Finally, the economic downturn in China under President Xi Jinping's leadership has intensified. According to official data, this has led to a significant outflow of capital, with $69 billion in corporate and household funds leaving the country in 2023. A portion of this capital is beginning to flow into India. Apple has established manufacturing plants in various Indian states to better serve the domestic market and diversify its export base amidst growing economic tensions between the United States and China.
Apple assembled $14 billion of iPhones in India last fiscal year, doubling production and a sign it's accelerating a push.
Apple's new iPhone 15 is already looking like one of the hottest in-demand items this holiday season. But as Ali Rogan tells us, several factors like shifting supply chains, labor disputes, and geopolitics are combining to keep the smartphone hard to find.
This move fosters the development of a domestic electronics supply chain, with several suppliers planning to set up large factories, particularly in South India, employing over 20,000 workers. This development is remarkable in a country traditionally known for its small-scale, inefficient manufacturing operations. If these large-scale plants prove successful, they could ignite a significant increase in good exports, transforming the future of India's long-struggling manufacturing sector and providing new opportunities for low-skilled workers let out of the high-skilled export service boom. Consider the potential impact. While India's low-skilled exports may never match China's dominance, evidenced by China's over 40% share of the global market, the conditions that once drove the global industrial shift to China are no longer in place. However, over the next decade, India has the potential to boost its market share, despite the promising signs. Declaring that India is set to surpass China is premature. The positive indicators are not yet convincingly reflected in the economic data, and government policies still fall short of fully capitalizing on these new opportunities. Examining the economic data reveals a cautious outlook. There has been skepticism about whether India has truly moved past the stagnation of the 2010s, a decade marked by modest growth minimal structural transformation, and weak job creation. While the post-COVID-19 recovery is evident, it has been uneven, benefacting capital over labor, large corporations over small businesses, and the salaried middle class and wealthy over the millions working in the informal sector. A significant challenge is that India has only partially tapped into the new opportunities arising from China's relative economic decline. Despite the government's vigorous Make in India initiative, many companies remain hesitant to expand their operations in India. In fact, foreign direct investment, FDI, inflows have been decreasing. This issue isn't solely due to cautious foreign investors. Even domestic companies have shown reluctance to invest, despite the government's efforts to enhance infrastructure, provide subsidies, and implement protectionist measures for the manufacturing sector. Private investment in plants and machinery has not yet recovered from the low levels of the past decade. Furthermore, there are no strong indications that this trend is reversing. In fact, the number of new project announcements decreased in nominal terms in 2023, compared to the previous year. As a result, India's manufacturing exports remain underwhelming, which is crucial for creating jobs for its large unskilled labor force. India's global market share in key sectors like apparel has declined since the global financial crisis. This trend has been a significant concern for Modi's administration and even the central bank, recently releasing a report urging the private sector to get its act together and alleviate the government's investment burden. Why have firms been resistant to seize the obvious opportunities? The core issue is their perception that the risks involved are simply too high. Firms' concerns can be categorized into three main areas. First, there is apprehension about the weak software of policymaking. The playing field isn't level with a few large domestic conglomerates and certain foreign companies perceived as receiving preferential treatment, which harms the overall investment climate. For every favorite firm that invests due to lowered risks, numerous competitors cut back their spending as their risks escalate. These firms face significant threats of becoming victims of arbitrary government actions. Second, although the government acknowledges the importance of boosting exports, it remains deeply committed to protectionism, imposing import barriers. This inward focus is appealing because many believe India's large domestic market and increasingly advanced local firms can easily replace foreign companies, provided they receive government support. Economic nationalism often goes hand in hand with political nationalism. However, the truth is that India's domestic market is not as large as it seems, especially for the middle-class goods that global companies aim to sell. For instance, the announcement in August restricting laptop imports caused panic among IT sector companies. Although these restrictions were later relaxed, the apprehension remains, particularly since similar measures have been enacted in other industries. Modi's popularity suggests such stability. However, growing discontent among minority communities, southern states, political opposition, and northern farmers heightens the risk of unforeseen disruptions. So what do you think? Will India surpass China, or are there too many obstacles in the way? Share your thoughts and comments below. Your perspective is valuable to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful discussions.